Our next inductee has been a college coach for 40 years. As head coach of Bentley University since 1986, she has guided her team to 22 25-win seasons and 10 trips to the Division II Fab Four, including a national championship in 2014. Recognized as coach by the Women's Committee, please welcome Barbara Stevens. Hello, Coach.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
You've been at the helm you've been on the helm of a highly successful program for 4 decades, long before head coaching opportunities became more widely available to women. Who inspired you to blaze this trail, and how have you been able to sustain such success over the years?
So I was extremely fortunate to have run into the women's athletic director at Division III Clark University right here in Massachusetts. And right as I had graduated, just as I had graduated from college. And I asked her if there was any coaching jobs, at Clark, possible assistant coaching job for the women's basketball team, and she said, no, we really don't have anything, but let me get back to you. So a week later, she called me back and said, I can give you an assistant women's basketball coaching position for $400. And I thought I had hit the jackpot at that time. Now, this is 1976. So I took the opportunity while teaching at a local high school, and my second year at Clark, so at the age of 23, I was named head coach. And that's kind of where it all began. And the second part of your question, as far as sustaining, that's all the result of the people that you work with, the players that you coach, the administration that supports you. I know every coach that has stood here, and I'm sure every player that has stood here will say to you that it is not, basketball is not a one-person game, and you win as a team and you lose as a team, and if you're lucky enough to coach great players who are also great people, then you can be successful, and fortunately we have had a pretty good history of success.
Excuse me. The NCAA Women's Final Four drew a record viewership, and fan engagement this past year was all out of the roof. What do you attribute this to, and how can women's basketball keep that momentum?
It's been a sport that I think has just been waiting to finally burst onto the scene. It's been coming along, gaining more and more interest, more and more fan interest. But I think the thing that kind of pushed it into the forefront of everyone's minds was the incident of the young woman from Oregon putting out on Instagram the inequities between what was happening with the men's NCAA tournament and the women's NCAA tournament. And all of a sudden, people actually took notice. And that, I think, brought a lot more viewership, to be honest with you. And I also think that it was finally a way in which women's basketball could stand up and stand out. And so I think it took something like that to really push the sport into the forefront, which I'm thrilled about. And it's only going to get better and better.
First question is on Zoom from John Corrales.
Huh? No? Oh, no, sorry.
We're going to go instead with Meredith Perry on Zoom.
Okay.
Hi, Meredith Perry with Mass Live. Congratulations. As a Massachusetts native, what kind of memories did you have with the Hall of Fame growing up? And At what point in your career did you start to realize that your accomplishments could put you there?
I'll answer the second part first, and that is never. Um, it was not something that I ever dreamed about because, or it was a dream come true, because I would have never dreamt of something like this. Like all coaches, you were focused on one game at a time and the current team, and I never looked to the future, and I never, it was not something that I ever thought about. So I am incredibly humbled and honored to be here. The first part of your question is, growing up in Southbridge, basically 40 miles from the Hall of Fame, my first memories were as a young girl with my parents, my dad, taking me to the Hall of Fame when it was in its old building. And I remember seeing a pair of shoes that was bigger than this platform. And I said, okay, now we're talking about a whole different level of the game of basketball. And that stuck with me. But I recently went to the Hall of Fame and saw all the renovations that have been done. It is spectacular, absolutely spectacular. So I'm truly honored to be a part of it.
Next up on Zoom, from the Associated Press, Tim Reynolds.
Hello, Coach Stevens. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Coach, you got Gino and Muffet to be on the same team tomorrow night, which is kind of a big deal, obviously. I'm curious what that means to you, that they were both willing to do this, and also broadly, how important is it to you that we protect the Division II and Division III opportunities that are out there for kids? Because not everybody can go or has to go Division I. I wanted to ask you if you're concerned about the future of the smaller divisions, and if there's anything you would change about their viability going forward. Thank you.
So in answer to the first part, I had gotten to know Gino and Muffet when I was coaching at the University of Massachusetts. And we had the great fortune, and I will say this tomorrow, I will say that tongue-in-cheek, the great fortune of competing against Gino's UConn team and Muffet's Lehigh team at that time. And we kept our friendship. I worked with Gino through a USA basketball stint, and our coaching careers and paths have crossed on a number of occasions. And Muffet and I have just remained friends, had a good friendship. So for me, it was a no-brainer to ask both of them if they would present me. As you all know, you have to pick someone who is currently in the Hall of Fame. So to me, that was a natural choice. And to briefly tell a quick story, I texted Gino and said, could we just talk for a minute? And sure, so I called him and I said, as you may or may not know, I'm going to be inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame, and I wanted to know if you would be my presenter. And there was silence. So I'm thinking, oh my God, that did not work out well. Probably the wrong thing to ask him. And after a few moments, he said, I would be honored. So it made me feel a whole lot better. And that's who he is. That's who he is. He's always been great to me, and I've really appreciated our friendship. Muffet was the same, right away, of course. Yes, I would love to. So that was wonderful. Division II and Division III. Number one, I obviously have so much respect for those men and women in basketball and all sports who play at the Division II and III level. As you said, Division I is not for everyone. Not everyone is either talent-wise at that level or even aspires to be at that level. So 2 and 3 are great options. I loved Bentley University, where I coached for 34 years, because of the balance that I saw between the academics and the athletics. We still could give the full complement of scholarships allowed by the NCAA, so we could go out and recruit the best players that we could, and that's what we tried to do. The future of D2 and D3, I couldn't even begin to know. I just see how things are going, and you know, it's possible that maybe those two divisions may merge at some point. Now, don't quote me because I have no, I'm just throwing that out there, but you know, it's going to be tough, I think, in the future.
They're going to quote you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I should go now.
Next up on Zoom, Antoine. I'm going to switch to the room from the LA Times, Dan Wilkie.
Coach, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Mark asked you a little bit about kind of women's basketball's popularity. I'm curious, what do you think Kobe Bryant's advocacy for women's basketball meant or will mean to the sport moving forwards? And during this sort of going in with him, have you reflected on that a lot?
Yes, and actually I've been asked that question of what his impact would have been. And well, first of all, it was such a tragedy and such a gut punch to anyone who knows and loves the game of basketball. Whether you knew Kobe or didn't, I just think it was just it was senseless, and everyone's still left shaking their heads. I felt that, you know, Kobe has his legacy of being an NBA player and just, you know, one of the best ever. However, I truly was sad because I felt as though he was going to do great things for women's basketball. Obviously, he was supporting his daughter through the game and very interested in the game because of her. But I felt like we lost a champion. We lost a champion of women's basketball when he died, and he would have brought so much to it. He would have brought the notoriety, but also I think he would have supported, encouraged, got women to play at, you know, at a different level because of his energy and his inspiration. So that I felt it wasn't just a tragedy for, you know, for those who knew him, but a tragedy I felt for women's basketball.
And Coach, our last question comes from Zoom, Samuel Rodriguez Jr.
Hey, Coach. I just want to say congratulations on the Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
With all of your accomplishments and now finally capping it off with being in the Hall of Fame, you're an inspiration to women everywhere. How does it feel to be an inspiration to all these young women in sports?
I really never thought of that, to be honest with you. I thank you for saying that. I hope so. It's overwhelming, just the entire thing. I mean, I've kind of been like this throughout most of my career, and you know, I dealt with the people I dealt with and worked with the women that I coached and the assistant coaches, so I never really thought about my impact on others. The only way that I actually knew I had an impact on others was when my former players would tell me so, that how I've impacted their lives and how I've impacted how they are mothering their children and how they want their children to be. And that's always made me feel extremely proud and extremely humbled. But if I can be that to others and to young girls wanting to play basketball or young females wanting to get into coaching, then I'm certainly proud to do so, or try to do so.
Coach, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.